What up, artists? My name is Dwayne Jones. I'm the creative director and founder of a lifestyle brand called Art Pays Me. This is the Art Pays Me podcast, and I'm passionate about finding ways that people like you and me can make a living for ourselves off of our creativity. And, maybe we can make the world a better place at the same time. Let's get into it. Welcome to Art Pays Me. Today we have Andy De Silva. I always want to say Andy Das because that's how I think of you on Instagram. But, welcome to the show.
Pleasure to be here, man. Thanks for having
me. Yeah, no doubt. I first met you. I followed your stuff online, and then we ended up meeting in person. And I think the podcast was super new at that point. I had you in mind to be a guest back then, so I'm glad to finally connect. So for the people, what do you do?
Oh yeah, well, consider myself to be a artist by any, just an artist, urban. Consider myself to be like an urban cartoon artist. So like I specialize in a lot of cartoon-based work, character-based work, but not just limited to that. I mean, I do contemporary works as well. So just for lack of a better word, an artist by any other name. Yeah.
Cool. And you're based in Montreal?
Yeah, born and raised in Montreal. That's where I got my chops. That's where I got my inspiration and everything and pertaining to my arts. And it's a very art-centric city, so there's a lot of inspiration here, definitely. There's so many different artists from different genres, different styles, different mediums. So it's kind of like it's kind of really easy to get inspired in the city, definitely. Because the city's very art-centric and centered around arts, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I went there last year, and that's where I finally got to meet you, I was super inspired. I've been there before, but I never went there with the sort of professional artist lens, and going there thinking along those lines this time. I could just see it's not like the biggest city in the world, but like the creativity just kind of brims over in there.
Definitely. Yeah, I remember when we met up, you told me that you had visited, but you didn't get a chance to really take it in. And so like you said, it's a small city, but I think that's very beneficial because it's easy to get to point A to point B. And we have a lot of galleries, there's a lot of DIY in the city, a lot of startups, and a lot of people just kind of doing their own thing and making their own way and doing little galleries or shows or group shows and whatnot. So it's if you keep your ear to the grindstone like I do, I mean, there's a lot of opportunities to go out there and get your artwork out there.
You know what? This is one thing I always wondered. Do you think that because it's a bilingual city, that adds to the creativity level?
I would say so. Yeah, I would agree with that. I would definitely agree with that. I think that mix of different cultures and having that language, a French language, it kind of gives us our own identity, and it opens up doors in terms of like you could have a gallery that maybe a French person opened up, and then you have galleries that English Anglophones will open up. So you got like the best of both worlds kind of thing, and then they cross pollinate, So it's like it's one and the same, but it's also kind of separate. Mm-hmm. So you have that opportunity. Like you might go into a French gallery, but it's like French owned gallery, but you have English artists in that gallery. You have artists from other walks of life in that gallery, and vice versa. I think everything just comes together that way. It's like a melting pot of those two different cultures coming together.
Mm-hmm. Dope. So, like, your work is kind of trippy. You got a lot of color. You got, like, a lot of creatures. Where'd you come up with that? I know you said you're inspired by the city, but, like, is there somewhere else?
I'm just growing up. Like, I'm an 80s baby, So, like, just growing up, I was always inspired by, like, cartoons. That was my first love. Like when I was a young kid, even at my early years, I wanted to be a cartoonist. And it's weird. Like, how some kids, they have that they might say they want to be like a policeman or a fireman or like whatever when you're a kid, whatever you want to be. And then you kind of outgrow it. It's like a phase.
Mm-hmm.
For a lot of kids, they just kind of have that little short phase with art. to me, it's like even when I was like in my teens, I was like, yeah, I still want to be a cartoonist. I still want to do that. But then as the times moved on, you like cartooning. I kind of got lost out of that, but I still like to create art. But at the time, like I think like a lot of artists, you're just kind of trying your voice and trying to find where you fit in and what you're comfortable doing all the time. To
Mm-hmm.
me, it was just always drawn. And then when I got into my 20s and I graduated, and I didn't graduate in art actually, I graduated in English and English literature. But again, that desire to always create art was always there. It was always my main passion. So I tried my hand at the time everything was going 3D, 3D animation this, 3D animation that. So I tried my hand at 3D animation, but I didn't like it. So
Mm.
I kind of dropped out of that and just continue to draw and paint until I continue to draw actually until I just one day decided that I wanted to try my hand at painting. I kind of got into to these magazines like High Fructose and
Yes.
yeah, Juxtapose, High Fructose, and then I got into like I was looking at Kid Robot one day and I was super inspired by like a streetwear and street culture, like streetwear brands and stuff like that. And I got into like Kid Robot and I looked at their website and it had so many artists that were doing cartoon style like art, and I just got like it blew my mind, you know. And then my first four was I actually started doing like t-shirts. So I did like a few different runs of t-shirts, and from there it just branched off into me trying my hand at painting.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I got into painting, that was it, man. That became like my love. That was my I was super addicted. I was painting every day.
Mm.
Every day I was trying to paint, trying to get better, and I just got lost in that world.
Right. So what kind of paint specifically?
I would just use acrylics mostly. When I first started out doing acrylic painting, I just kind of wanted to paint my characters and ideas, but just do it with paint as opposed to just drawing it. Because back then when I was drawing, it was strictly always black and white. So
Okay.
then when I started painting, it gave me that inspiration to just use color and do my stuff with color. So I was still painting characters and stuff, but it had no voice, it had no direction, it had no stylistic um had no style at that point. It was kind of just like seeing what works, trial and error. But I was still painting very much figurative, character based work.
I was asking because you kind of have almost like a graffiti esque like method in a way, like of the way your work presents. Like it's kind of flat in terms of uh, like you don't necessarily see the brush texture, at least not from far away. So you could almost be fooled into thinking you're using spray paint and stencils. Is that sort of intentional, or is it just the way it sort of just happened organically?
I think like again, like watch like taking in those influences from those magazines and stuff.
Yeah.
My style developed like that. When I got further into my painting and I had the courage to start exhibiting, I met up with a collective called En Masse, which was
Mhm.
like a mural painting collective in Montreal. And basically, that was like a stomping grounds for artists that wanted to do different things or do mural painting. So when I came into contact with that collective, it was really like we would do jams and drawing sessions and paint murals and stuff around the city, and everything was black and white. So at the time, like I was starting to do paintings in color, but I was still very much a black and white artist. So it was right up my alley. And the artists in that collective were anywhere from fine artists to comic book artists to graffiti artists. So it's just this melting pot of all different artists coming together to paint these large scale murals. And I kind of got my chops from there and as well as inspiration. But I mean, the art style I was doing even prior to that was very much inspired by urban arts and comic books and animation and those styles of art, so to
Right.
speak.
Right. And I notice you do a lot of woodcut as well.
Yeah, that's something I just got into in the last few years. I guess the last couple years, maybe 3 years,
Mhm.
where I just had this itch to see my characters done as like a woodcut painting. I think I was just inspired by like artists like Cause. Like if you look at Cause's work, he has these large scale paintings that are very contemporary, but they're in the shape of like a character.
Okay.
Yeah, so like when I saw that, I was like, hey, you know what? That would be cool to do like my monster tune characters like that. Like just have them like come to life. Like they just look like you see the shape and you see the whole outline and everything.
Mm,
So I tried that out and I fell in love with that as well. So I like doing those pieces as well. They're just super fun to do.
cool. Yeah, I actually wanted to ask you about the Monster Tunes. So, what's that about? Like, what's the story behind them?
I think that's fixing my itch to create my own world and create my own universe. At first, I didn't see it that way. I felt like it was just another style I was doing. But
Mm,
then within the last 2 years, I saw opportunity to just really do something that, not to say it hasn't been done before, but just something totally left where it's like I have all these characters I made and kind of bring them back at the forefront. Like, most people, they might have like one character that they always draw.
yeah.
And, and then they just draw that. And I was kind of like, I wanted to take that a step further. I'm like, what if I had like my own Walt Disney? Like, Walt Disney has like a whole universe of characters. What if I did that? And that was kind of my inspiration. I just saw a grand opportunity to make my own my own world, my own Looney Tunes, my own Walt Disney, my own, like all these characters that my collectors have been collecting because I sell these as paintings, small scale paintings. They started out as 6x6 acrylic paintings. And I have a few collectors that they just collect that style for me, you know?
Mm,
They got like like one of my collectors has like 20, close to 20 paintings, and another one of my collectors has 50 of these
wow.
characters. Yeah. So I was like, holy shit, like it got, I'll be honest with you, I kind of, a little bit of it too was like, how much more characters can I do? Like, how many new characters can I do? Like, I've done close to 100 of these characters. So it's like, am I just going to keep doing like 1,000 characters? So it's
Right.
like, I have all these amazing characters that I designed. I'm like, why aren't I capitalizing on bringing these characters back and doing stuff like doing merch with these characters or putting them in different creative venues or avenues with these characters I created, because it gets exhausting, and it's like I have a creative brain. I have a pretty wild imagination, but it just was like I felt like I was missing an opportunity
Hmm.
with all these characters to not bring them back and do bigger and better things, or not necessarily better, but bigger things, or more expand that universe, so to speak.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So I used to do sort of a similar thing. When I was younger, I had all these characters that I used to draw and put in different scenarios. And then when I learned how to paint, I started painting them. But like, I always had like really specific personalities and what their superpowers were and what they could do in the world and who they interacted with. Do you go that far with your characters?
I do, and I'm starting to. Um, Certain characters I created, I do have already a story in mind for those characters and like backstory, but some I don't. But I'm kind of just trying to flesh out like how could I make this into like I envision it in my head now. It's like if this was a movie, what would this be about? Like how would I bring this to the big screen? But how do I do that? It informs in terms of my paintings and the artwork I'm doing. How do I create a story? And I think that's the challenge right now that I'm coming up with. Like, how do I make this engrossing story and bring it to life through contemporary art?
Gotcha.
And yeah, and make a story like that. Like, how do I pertain it to like today's world? Like, what's the message behind it? What's the symbolism behind it? So I'm trying to piece that together now. That's
Hmm.
the challenge right now with it's not just about having like a product or a merch, but how do I make it more engrossing, engaging world with these characters that people could really relate to and gravitate towards my story.
Right. Right. That's cool.
And that goes back to as well as my inspirations in cartoon and animation. Like when you look at Disney and you look at like what Pixar does, it's so incredible because they introduce these characters and they make a movie behind that, and there's a whole fleshed out story. But every single movie is different. They do have sequels, but it's like they have so many different characters and ideas that they fleshed out over the years, and they really made their own engrossing world with these characters. You know,
Mm-hmm.
how do I do that, but from a contemporary art standpoint? How do I do that from an urban art standpoint? And that's the challenge right now that I'm trying to piece together.
Dope. So I want to talk about the mural work for a bit. I've never done a mural or any kind of really large format outdoors work. How does that compare to when you do smaller, more intimate pieces?
I think it's similar process, similar techniques. I haven't done a lot of large scale murals myself. That's actually another muscle I want to flex more and get more into. But the
Okay.
murals I have done, it's kind of a similar process. It's like you have your idea, your concept, and then you basically just sketch it on the wall and then paint it or spray paint or whatever what materials you want to use. I mean, spray paint, it's a lot faster. Even that, I'm not the best spray painter out there. A lot of the murals I've done have been straight up with just a brush, you know. And last summer, I actually did a mural with spray paint. I used spray paint to do it.
Okay.
But the thing with spray paint, what's beautiful about it is that it's just faster and you could just paint something really quick with spray paint. But the trouble with spray paint is that you got to have that can control. You got to be on point. It takes a while to adjust. Like if you're used to, like a guy like me, I'm meticulous with a brush,
Mm-hmm.
so it's hard. It's kind of hard to transition out of that. But that comes with stepping out of your comfort zone. But then there are street artists who strictly use brushes and they use rollers, and that's what they do, right? That's how
Mm-hmm.
they paint. They don't use a lot of spray paint. So it's like it's a matter of adjusting and getting that know-how and getting that practice with the can control. Because like a lot of the stuff these guys do, it's like they're doing that with spray can, and it's incredible. And that's really inspiring too in Montreal because we have such a strong urban arts and graffiti and street art scene
Yeah.
that you could just learn from these people. Like you just watch. We have the Mural Fest, we have the graffiti, the Under Pressure Festival, and these are festivals just dedicated to urban arts, to street art, to graffiti. And we have so many artists in the city that are graffiti writers that are just incredible. You know, it comes back to just learning the can control. For me per se, I'm still trying to learn and improve my techniques with the can, and I look forward to doing that in the next few months. But I mean, it's pretty much the same process as what I would do painting. You're just doing it on a bigger scale, basically.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Cool. And I started like going through seeing some of the videos you've been posting, and you talked about the importance of consistency as an artist. Do you want to elaborate on that a bit?
Oh, 100%. Consistency is everything. I find like as an artist, you really want to be creating and doing something for the betterment of your career every day, whether that's painting or blogging or posting on social media or whatever, or emailing galleries or something. For me, I cannot go I cannot really go a day without creating something, even if I'm not posting it on social media, even if I just have it on the back end in my sketchbook or just put it aside. I gotta really be creating because to me it's more than just creating something to show people. It's
Mhm.
also a way of how I I deal with anxiety and it's therapeutic to me. And I
Mhm.
just can't. It's like an addiction. I'm very obsessive by nature in general,
Yeah.
and it's a way of exercising that addiction with something creative. I just have a creative addiction. I always want to create something new and just always want to improve. It's kind
Right.
of like I look at it like to me, I'm a huge hip hop head. So like a lot of the inspiration I get from in terms of my creation comes from a work ethic. Like I treat it like if I was a rapper and I wanted to be out there, you'd be putting out mixtapes every day. You know, you'd be putting out freestyles every day. And that's how you build a fan base. Like if you look at like a rapper's fan base, like an artist like a Lil Wayne or like an Eminem or something,
Yeah.
their fan base is gravitating towards the art and the creation of that art. You know, it's just really they can't get enough. When you talk about sport, or even if you talk about like sports, like how sport people talk about sports, they talk about athletes like they're talking about sports every day. They can't like art. Rest in peace, Kobe. He was talking about being in the gym like every day, every like moment he was in the gym practicing and shooting, and you just live for it, you know? So that's how I am with my art. I try to treat it like that. And in terms of consistency, just always creating, always putting out work, always flexing the muscle, always keeping the pen sharp, keeping the brush sharp.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think it's really important for artists. I don't believe in resting on your laurels, and I
Yeah.
don't believe in entitlement. I think if you're like, we live in an ADD age, unfortunately. So it's like people always want to see the next thing. And I don't think you should compete with that either. I think it comes to being like, you need a balance. You need a balance. You need a balance of knowing when to show your work and having something to say. And at the same time, always wanting to evolve and improve on your craft and not being complacent.
Mm-hmm.
Never think you got this. Like, you should never feel like that as an artist. You should never feel like you got something as a creative.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
I never want to get comfortable. My biggest fear is getting comfortable. Don't get comfortable because I've been comfortable in the past, and then you slip up, and then that's it. And it's like you gotta get back into that groove. You gotta gain that momentum. You know.
Yeah. 100%. You know, that leads into the other thing I want to talk about is social media validation. So like you got to balance putting your stuff out there, but with doing the hard work, when sometimes you can get distracted with the social media and spend maybe more time on that than actually doing your craft, and then you find yourself, am I pandering to my audience or am I releasing what I truly want to release? How do you feel about that?
Yeah. Again, it comes back to balance in me. I like to post every day and feed my fan base. So I make sure my posts are tailored to what my fan base likes of
Mm-hmm.
me. And what I gathered is that like people love seeing the behind the scenes. They
Yeah.
love seeing you work on a piece. So like in my stories, I delegate that stuff to my stories. I'll show myself working on my latest painting, working on my latest drawing, and I get like more views on that stuff than I get on my posts, like
Mm-hmm.
people like seeing that stuff. They like seeing the creation. They like seeing what goes on in an artist's mind, because a lot of people that aren't creative, they don't know how artist comes up with something. They want to know like what goes in that artist's brain to come up with that idea, what goes into that artist's brain to create the way he creates, and when you give them that glimpse, when you give them that opportunity to see what you're working on, it's a great intimate way of bonding with somebody that likes your work. They get to
Yeah.
see it firsthand. They feel totally engaged. You're like, hey, I'm a fly on the wall watching this dude right now create that kick-ass painting, you know like me, how I tailor my social media, I tailor it to just constantly being inspired. So like my Facebook is just, I follow like a ton of art groups. I follow a ton of art groups on Facebook. So what I'll do is when I log in, I just see art all the time. I'm just
Uh,
seeing people's art. I don't see Deborah's what she had for lunch. I don't see that. I don't give a shit about that. I don't see that. I block out all that shit. So when I go on, all I see in my feed is 100% art. So
mhm.
it's hard not to be inspired by that. And some of the art I see is like mind blowing. And then you engage with people, you talk with people, you see what people like of yours, and then that's how I have my feed. And the other thing is like memes too, because I'm a meme junkie. I actually think that shit is funny. So like it's just memes and art. My Facebook is literally memes and art. And I purposely tailored my Facebook like that. So every time I log in, it's a constant reminder like, hey, you got to get to work. Did you see what this guy just posted? Oh, you got to top that. You got to get on it. You got to go draw. You got to get inspired. And that's how it is. And I like artists that produce at a high level of quality level,
Mhm.
and they could do it consistently. It's not
Mhm.
just they have one painting and then they're posting that painting every day, or that's all they do. It's
Right.
like I like artists that have a high quality work ethic, of that ratio of, hey, we're giving you quality work, but we're also giving you the quantity as well. I,
Mhm.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that because it's hard to get into that momentum of constantly being able to produce quality work. So I tip my hat to fellow artists that are able to do that.
Yeah, I like that too, actually. 'Cause I know people are kind of critical of in terms of who they follow and stuff. I'm like, well, I'm sort of the same. I pretty much try to cater my following to stuff I want to see. So
That's it. You have to, because there's so much noise out there, right?
yeah,
There's so much bullshit out there, and like you said, it's easy to go down the rabbit hole.
Yep.
It's so easy to get lost, man. It's so easy to be on social media, and then it's like you plan to just do one little thing, and the next thing you know, you're doing some bullshit. You're looking at something that is not conducive to what you want to accomplish, or not conducive to your creativity.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Man, you get me fired up and inspired because like my 2019, I didn't really create as much as I wanted to. And so far 2020, I've been creating a lot more. But like, yeah, it's
Amazing.
important, man. It's important to like get those hours in and you
You
know,
have to, man. Yeah,
put them
that's how
shots
you
up.
spring. Definitely, definitely. Because it
Yeah.
helps you with your other ideas too, right? It helps you with your branding. I'm sure, like everything. Like sometimes you need that alone time to just lock it in, because you think a lot when you're creating, and sometimes an idea or a concept or something that you weren't aware of will just come to light when you get that intimate time to just zero in and focus on something. It might not even have nothing to do with art. It might be some other area in your life. You're like,
Yeah.
you know what? You're just painting, you're enjoying it, and you're like, oh shit, yeah, I should do that. Or, oh yeah, I remember that. Or, I gotta do that, or I gotta focus on that as well, and it just comes to light to have that alone time to just focus and zero in.
You get that clarity sometimes from
That's it. There you go. That's the word I'm looking for. There you go. That
mm,
clarity,
yeah.
helps with everything. But you were killing it with your branding
Oh, thank
last year. You're really connecting with people, and you're really out there. You're doing your conferences, you're doing your tour, and all that stuff. Was really inspiring to see that.
thanks. Yeah, that was kind of where my focus went last year was more like just focusing on the brand specifically and less on the creative side. But you know, it's hard to figure out how to do both at the same time sometimes. Uh, but like, what's also interesting about doing the creative thing is sometimes I'm scared to lock it in and to dedicate real time to a painting because it'll reveal that I actually suck at painting. And then I have to be like, oh man, I put all this time into this thing that I don't even like. So this is a weird psychological thing that happens to artists sometimes too. At least for me, anyway. I don't know if that happens to you, but I get this thing where I'm like, man, geez, maybe I'm just not that good, you know?
Happens to everybody, brother. Happens to everybody. I mean, at some point, every artist gets insecure. Like I always have this point where it's like I'm almost finished a painting, and then I look at it and I'm like, nah, that ain't the one. Like that, this one, the next one gonna be better. But I still finish it. But by the time I'm finished it, I'm like, holy shit, this looks damn good.
Mhm.
This looks damn good. I like it. I think it's just those natural, like your brain naturally think is your brain naturally thinks negative, right? You have to kind of retrain it to think positive. Like I was reading books about how the brain works, and your brain is naturally made to make you think negative. It's naturally made to put negative thoughts in your head, and I think that's just that. You just can't. You just got to ignore those types of emotions or whatever in your
Mhm.
head, and just lock it in.
Yeah.
Because every artist goes like that. There's days where it's like I put out something and it's like comes back to that validation video I had on my Instagram, where it's like you're so proud of a painting and you post it and it's like it didn't
Nobody
get the
like
response you didn't get the response then you're salty. You're like, ah, shit, like how come they ain't like that one? But the reality of it is like there's a lot of things into play that have nothing to do with the creativity or the quality of the painting. There's the algorithms. There's like, okay, they're not showing it to certain people. And even if, let's just say hypothetically, nobody liked the painting, that shouldn't stop you from liking it. Like you shouldn't need the validation from others to enjoy what you're doing. Like if it's your true calling, it's your true passion. Like even if they didn't like a particular piece or a particular artwork, who's to say they're not going to like the next one?
absolutely.
And
You know
that's
what?
what keeps
No, go ahead.
and that's what keeps you going. Like it's always that like you don't know. Like there's paintings that I posted that I didn't care much for. Like I was like, okay, this is a cool painting. I like it. It's dope. But I didn't think it was gonna go like that. And then people commented on that, and I'm like, okay, people enjoy that. And then that's interesting too. Always seeing the different reactions to good or bad to a
Mhm.
particular artwork.
Yeah, it's true. I try to remind myself when I start getting down on myself like that. I think about like I'm a hip hop head too, and I think about my favorite hip hop albums or something, and I think, you know what? Some of those albums, I don't like every song on them. It doesn't mean I think the artist is trash. It's just
Oh no,
I just
no,
don't like a
definitely
particular
not.
song. So
That's it.
it's okay to just, not everyone's gonna like everything you put out, and
That's
that's fine.
exactly it. Every art, even the biggest artists in the world, go through that. Eminem just dropped 3 albums in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Why? Because people didn't like that revival joint.
Mm-hmm.
He dropped that revival joint. Nobody liked it. So he, in his mind now, he probably had those same, like we go through, like every artist goes through, like, oh, they don't like me no more. So then he came back at it and he dropped 2 more joints, man.
Right.
Came out of nowhere and he's like, nah, screw that. Like, I do this. This is what I do. I was
Mm-hmm.
made to do this. This is my passion. I'm gonna show y'all who's the king. I'm gonna show y'all, like, yo, I got some shit. I got some stuff to put out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you gotta be. You always gotta be with that mindset. You never give up. I think, like, as an artist, you've gotta really have a strong belief, even in spite those insecurities or those insecure thoughts. You gotta have a strong belief in your art and what you want to put out there,
Mm-hmm.
because that's gonna catapult you forward. Like, when you enjoy it so much, when you really, 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 really enjoy it, that's gonna take you. That's gonna take you where you need to go.
Yeah.
After that, it doesn't matter after that, because you'll find a way to cope with those other things.
I love that. Love it. So I saw you have a painting at the Vert exhibition at the Mark Gosselin Gallery.
Yes, yeah,
I really
that
love that
is.
actually.
Pardon?
I really like that piece, man. It's nice.
Oh, thank you, brother. Thank you. Yeah, it's one of my planetary styles, my different styles. So I was trying to challenge myself. Nuit Blanche in Montreal. It's like this all night art event where it's like the city stays up. Not the city. The transportation system stays up in all night,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a whole bunch of parties, exhibitions, installations, and the museums are open. Basically, it's like an art party in the city, and then they have like amusement stuff too that you could go check out. Basically, it's a whole bunch of events. They even have food events and booze events. So it's like one night only, and there's all these events going around in different parts of the city. So a lot of galleries like to take part, and I was asked to take part in that exhibition. The theme this year is for green. Vert in French means green.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, all the artworks have to be centered around the theme of green. So I decided to do like one of my planetary paintings with just shades of green, just to challenge myself. I know it was a bit of a challenge, but that's how it is. You always want to push yourself, right?
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what's actually when is the show close? In case people, I don't know when.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, the show takes place. If you're in Montreal, anybody that's from Montreal, listen to the show is at Margot's and Gallery,
Mm.
3880 St. Catherine East. That's going to be taking place for one night. The vernissage happens on Saturday from 7 to 1 a.m. So if you want to come by, if you're in Montreal, come by. If you're not in Montreal, if you're coming by that weekend and you want something to do, come step by. It's going to be a kick-ass show. There's 50 artists taking place. That's
Nice.
a cool-ass gallery. Yeah.
That's February 29th.
That's February 29th. Yeah.
Oh
From
man,
6 to 1.
this
6 to 1
episode's
a.m.
gonna drop after that, so they'll miss it. But anyway, I thought I'd try and give you a shout.
Yeah,
Uh,
no doubt. Thanks.
is there anything else that's coming up that maybe people could check out?
Right now, I'm just working on my own projects and stuff. So after that exhibition, I don't got nothing lined up right away, but I will be relaunching my website soon. And then right now, I'm going to be focusing on doing some merch. A lot of people have been bugging me for the years, like, "Hey, when are you going to do merch again? When are you going to do this? When are you going to do that?" And I just been putting it off. You know how it gets as artists, we procrastinate. So this
Yeah.
year, I'm super focused, and I've been I'm going to be doing some merch, doing some cool stuff with my website, and focusing on just kind of, I guess you could say, not necessarily a rebrand, but just kind of zeroing in on what I want my art, like having a look at it. Sometimes as an artist and creative, you got to kind of take a step back and kind of look at, like, okay, what am I doing? Where am I going? What do I want to accomplish? And then you got to kind of put put the goals into place, zero in on that thing that you want, or zero in on those things that you want and those things you want to accomplish. So it's about kind of stepping back and not just creating just for the sake of creating, so to speak, but also have a goal in mind,
You want to
So
make
for
sure.
me right now, that's like we talked earlier, like expanding this vision of of this world creation, creating a world, creating a brand, creating like my monster tunes and like taking my art to the next level in terms of storytelling and engagement and all that good stuff.
Got you. Cool. So where can people find you online since your site's not up yet?
Yeah. At Andy Das, Instagram. I'm pretty much at Andy Das everywhere. ANDYDASS.
Okay.
So my Facebook page, Andy Das, LO Andy Das, Instagram Andy Das. Is that it? Do I have any other thing? I think that's about it.
Okay.
And that's getting something. Yeah, that's about it.
All right.
So at Andy Das everywhere, you could hit me up, check out my work, and that's it. Yeah.
Thank you very much for doing Art Pays Me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, brother. It's been a pleasure. I love what you're doing. Keep it up.
Thank you so much for listening to the Art Pays Me podcast. Thank you to Langy Beats for the theme music. If you got anything out of this show, please rate, review, and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. The more you do this, the more reach the podcast gets and the more artists I can help learn to make a living at what they love. If you want to know more about what I do, hit me up at artpaysme.com or at artpaysme on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and Pinterest. See y'all next time.